Hey, Patrick.
Hey, Michael J.
How you doing this week?
Fantastic. How you doing?
I'm very fantastic also, partially because we're starting to see a few new cards, and if you're anything like me, being an engaged Magic the Gathering player, I bet you want to talk about some of the new cards.
Dude, it's like being a kid in a candy store. This is the beginning of a really, really good thing. Like it is an exciting time. God, I love spoiler season. And between you and me, the standard could use it.
Oh my god!
No, I'm looking forward to Green Free Denver this weekend. But I do think that this standard we kind of ringed in. Like Kaladesh has been I don't know. Like it started off with 32 smugglers copters, and it looked like the format might be stale and unhealthy. And we were right. Done. So now that said, initially it looked like there were 7 or 8 smugglers copters decks, and we've kind of distilled down the format into a 2-deck metagame. Not always smuggling coptering either, but
it's rare that you have a 2-deck metagame, right? Like one of those decks is supposed to be good against the other.
That's because there's actually a 3-deck metagame. There's 3 decks, right? There's black-green, blue-white, which beats black-green, and black-green, which beats blue-white but loses to black-green. And then, blue-white is the most popular and the best. But, there's 2 other... You can play black-green to beat black-green or blue-white, and it depends on where you want to position yourself in the scissors-paper kind of dynamic,
So you're just not a believer in decks like Jeskai Control at all? They're just not. They're not part of the...
No, I'm not saying that, man. I'm not saying that. I can't even go to one of the Pro Tours this season. You think I'm not going to brew?
Oh no, I didn't know that.
Dude. Yeah, one of the Pro Tours is going back to Japan. It's hard to really want to make a run on the season if you know that.
No, it's not. It's not hard to want to. Well, I don't know. I've never been in your shoes, being a Hall of Fame Pro Tour winning Magic the Gathering player. Poor little me. I'm going to be battling it out in the RPTQ next weekend, but don't worry, I'll win.
I believe in you.
I'll win for Top Level Podcasts and all of our listeners.
You should play whatever I play this weekend.
It's a completely different format, so if I do I will likely not win.
No, I'm saying the strategy. You might want to update it to be modern, but I don't know. Either way, man.
I have an exciting card. It's very exciting. Yeah.
Which card? Or is this secret tech?
I don't know how secret it is, but it seems pretty awesome to me, and it can go in multiple decks. I'm not 100%.
Now it has to. Now you have to share with the class.
Sudden Shock. What do you think about this card?
It's not, dude. Everybody plays Sudden Shock already.
Well, I didn't know about it until today, but now it's.
You have a Sudden Shock like an Inkmoth Nexus or an Arcbound Ravager. People do that kind of stuff.
So I called up PNAPS and OSIP, who are buddies of mine and also aficionados of Infect, and I said, well, PNAPS has 2 Grand Prix top 8s with Infect, and I'm like, PNAPS, can you beat a Sudden Shock? He's like, no. I'm like, good enough.
Yeah, no, that's good.
I'm sure it's theoretically beatable, right? Like you can, I don't know, Wild Defiance and then Slope.
Yeah, but it's the same thing as all the other cards. It's definitely really good at the things it does. It's just that there's a lot of decks. Yeah,
not to bog down in Modern too much because I would love to talk about the Aether Revolt cards.
Got spoilers.
But I think that I'm just of the mind that I want to play a focused strategy that's fast and gets its cards out at low mana. That's what's important to me. And I know there's a lot of other things you can
playing a burn deck, dude.
That's who I am.
Don't play Naya Burn. Oh my god, dude. No, it's fine. You can play Naya Burn. That's your jam.
So we should move from the plains of Modern to the swamps, islands, and I guess artifact scrap yards of Aether Revolt. But first, we should thank our many listeners and patrons for taking care of us and listening every week.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Particularly major shout out to Nate Green.
Thank you, Nate.
Yes, supporting us on Patreon, and obviously everybody who follows us and shares us on everything. Do we have an Instagram yet? I feel like it's one thing to be like on Twitter and Facebook and on YouTube and all that jam, but like, dude, we need like the Michael J. Flores, swimsuit calendar Instagram feed or something.
So I'll tell you what, I could start an Instagram, a Tumblr. You could also, by the way, but what would we put on it?
Mostly pictures of you in swimsuits.
Just, modeling swimsuits.
What, and decks.
And what if the swimsuits were just made of Magic cards?
Actually, I don't think that people are going to be in for the swimsuits that much. But imagine if we had decks, like, laid out.
Just let decks laid out?
Instagram pictures of decks, like deck lists,
I could get behind that.
Dude, that's the future.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going to say it's done, but for sure I will forget before we're done recording this episode. So people will be like, oh my gosh, does Top Level Podcast on Instagram? And they'll go look, and then who knows, it might be there. I might remember.
Soon.
Between recording this and posting it, I might remember to take the 30 seconds required to register to the Instagram. We'll find out.
Aether Revolt.
Aether Revolt.
Yahenni's expertise.
Yahenni seems like an expert in, magic. Yahenni's expertise. 2BB sorcery. All creatures get -3/-3 until end of turn. You may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. Go ahead.
It's like Languish and Bloodbraid Elf had a baby.
Yeah, like, this card is... It's
3/4 of a Languish and 1/4 of a Bloodbraid Elf.
I mean, like, -3/-3 for 4 mana, like some sort of equivalent of dealing 3 for 4 mana, is already in the conversation. I mean, it's not a slam dunk, right?
No. But people have played hissing me, like the -2/-2.
Yeah, I've played Mutilate Massacre, right? Is that one? Massacre?
Yeah.
-2/-2
off color. Yeah, just massacre and they don't have planes and you're just like, yep.
Massacre your green creatures. I've done that. Like...
Now, there are better options right now for whatever. But this one has something else going for it. Two things. One, it has -3/-3, which is already a bigger thing than -2/-2, which you could get from like the one with the void.
Yeah, I think scaling up from -2/-2 at 3 to -3/-3 at 4 that's perfectly reasonable to begin with.
This is a format full of there's this tension already. It's full of things like on the one side of the equation, you've got your 2/1 flyers, and you've got your 2/2 until he powers up, your Grim Flayer. But then you've also got your stuff like basically this format has a lot of 2/2s and 2/3s. And in the past, there's been this split because of Kozilek's Return. But first of all, nobody even plays Kozilek's Return anymore. And second of all...
That's true. Like, the people who are, like, marveling or ramping... Like, there are some people who are doing those things who have Eldrazi's in their deck. Some of those people Kozilek's Return. I think, like... Yeah. There are... Jund or green-red Marvel folks who have 2 to 4 Kozilek's Returns in their main decks on a consistent basis.
And I think that 3 toughness has been a sweet spot for creatures for a little while. There's stuff like Dead Weight and Galvanic Bombardment, and then at 4 there's Grasp of Darkness. So it's a little bit going to get whatever. It's going to get its money. But 3 is there hasn't been as much for the 3s recently, and there's a lot of great creatures with 3 toughness. So that part is already, there's something to the Languish replacement already, but wait, there's more.
Well, I think just to itemize some of those 3 casting costs, 3 toughness creatures, I mean, you have like tons of the best cards in the format are 3 toughness. Spell Queller, Reflector Mage, and Smuggler's Copter are all 2/3 or 3/3, right? And you can catch a Smuggler's Copter with this sometimes, depending on how you lay out the game, right? Like, you could theoretically get someone to block, right, and they eat your creature, but your creature was going to die to Yahenni's Expertise anyway.
Right.
Then you'll catch the Copter that
Sylvan Advocate.
Sylvan Advocate sometimes.
Another one, yeah. The fact that the -3/-3 actually can stack with other effects is also not nothing, right? Like when your opponent, like, there's going to be spots where you get into some big combat and your -3/-3 ends up being able to change the math of your ability to take down something, like particularly creatures that are indestructible because of Archangel Avacyn. Which I think is an important point to remember about -3/-3 compared to something like Kozilek's Return or Radiant Flames.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you can things that can regenerate, things that are indestructible. Giving it -3/-3 could potentially take it below 0 toughness, which will put it into the graveyard.
And obviously, Radiant Flames has been available to people, but it's been hard to play because of the ubiquity of Spell Queller. Like, if somebody Spell Quellers your Radiant Flames, it's sad times for you.
You're getting nothing back, yeah.
No. But if they Spell Queller your Expertise, woo, you can have a really nice play if you just kill their Spell Queller at instant speed.
Yeah, you
not only do you...
Wait, so is this you may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost? Is that part of the resolution?
It is. Yeah, you get to do all creatures get -3/-3, and then after that, you get to cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. So at some point, you can just kill the Spell Queller, wrath the board at instant speed or -3/-3, whatever that does, and then you get to play another card from your hand that costs 3 or less without paying its mana cost. And what's particularly sick is that if it's a sorcery or a creature, you can play it as though it had flash because you're killing their Spell Queller at instant speed. This card, to me, loudly looks like it was tweaked and engineered to help step on Spell Queller.
Yeah. I mean, Spell Queller, if there ever was a card in Standard that needed to have a little bit more of a target on its back, Spell Queller is probably the guy.
True.
And when you have a format where people are deliberately playing a bunch of 5s, you know that there's a little bit something off there. 5 pluses, I should say.
So let me walk you through some of the reasons why I think Expertise is just super exciting right out the gate. Let me give you some possibilities. So turn 4, Expertise, and then put Liliana the Last Hope into play and finish off the 4 toughness thing they were playing in order to beat Expertise.
Oh, that's cool.
That's nice, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
That's just clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's better than it sounds, it's better than it might seem on the surface, because when people know that Expertise is good and you have access to Expertise, they have more incentives to try to exactly beat it. And there are 4 toughness creatures that are exciting, like Archangel Avacyn, for instance. There's stuff people will be playing that has 4 toughness. Kalidas. And if you can Expertise, kill their Grim Flayer and their Sylvan Advocate, and then they still have a Kalidas, but then you get to drop Liliana and finish off Kalidas. That is a big game. You are doing some stuff. Here's another one. Here's another one for the Expertise. Expertise into Saheeli.
Saheeli Rai?
Yes. So
you're always
going
to go Grixis, huh?
No. So hear me out, because I think that there's more to this than what meets the eye. You can play a 2-color deck with a cheap splash where you've got maybe you've got some a little bit of fixing from a few dual lands, but you don't want all your lands to come into play tapped. And so you've got a few fixers, but you also rely on Expertise, and if there's any other cards that have this mechanic. as fixers, right? Like if you had a blue black,
this card can cast spells that you don't have mana for.
Right. So you could play Expertise in a blue black deck that only has 4 to 8. So you could have 8 sources of red and use the Expertise as sources 9 through 12.
That's very subtle. I like it.
Here's another possibility: Expertise with Ruinous Path, because sometimes you need to sweep the board and also kill their planeswalker.
You're less into that. I'll accept it, but
okay. Alternatively, Expertise into Succumb to Temptation. Or any of those kind of various draw twos. Anything in the 3 mana draw 2 space.
Now that is where I was thinking myself. I was thinking that this card is implying maybe the return of maybe a blue-black control deck in Standard. That you're gonna be able to advance. I guess not advance your board, like whatever the opposite of advance is, like unadvance their board and then kind of reload at the same time. That seems very exciting to me.
Well, could I interest you in black-red? Because if you play the Expertise on turn 4, you can play your spell on turn 4, your 3-cost spell for free, and then on turn 5 you can play Goblin Dark Dweller and play it for free again. Oh, wow. So, like, the Expertise pays you for playing a disproportionate. Normally if you play like lots of hits for Goblin Dark Dweller, you end up just having to play a 3 on turn 4 and you just suck it up because you just have too many 3s. Because you can't, like, your curve will get clunky, so you end up trimming 4s to make room for 3s. Well, and you can you'll end up just being clunky sometimes. But with Expertise, you actually can play. You want even more 3s. You want even more 3s than the Dark Dweller, because you want every bit of mana you can get off of this thing. You're paying for the mana, not the selection, the way that Dark Dweller does. And with this one, you very, very, very much don't want to waste this mana. The Dark Dweller you don't end up wasting very often at all because you're going to get something. This, the time passes, so you want to make sure you have stuff. And if you have stuff, though, your life is very good. You would have been happy to play anything on 3 anyway. You would have played a 3 on turn 4 anyway. The fact that you get to sweep the board and then play a real 3, I think that this is a promising thing. Or you can play the Expertise and follow it up with the Transgress the Mind. And that's not even just a 3, but I'm just saying, like, the ability to play into a Goblin Dark Dweller sort of game. This card seems like it's just exactly what they've been looking for.
Like, do you think you want to do something like overload heavily on 3 casting cost draw 2s? Like, there were some variations of Abzan in the past, right? That had like Abzan Charms and Read the Bones, etc. Because they just wanted to have so many draw 2s for 3. Or I guess at some point you have Painful Truths, right? Depending on what angle.
Yeah, but this doesn't work. This one and the Dark Dweller don't work with Painful Truths.
No, not Painful Truths specifically, right? But some kind of 3 mana draw 2s where you go like turn 3 draw 2, turn 4.
Live fast.
Yeah, this thing and draw 2, and then
live fast and succumb to temptation.
Yeah. Maybe I don't want to take 2 damage every time I do it though. But.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll also be interesting to see if. If you end up wanting to be doing some kind of like Hardness Lightning, Live Fast type of shenanigans, because I could imagine that.
You get like super energetic at the same time.
And it's cute that if you kill their 2 with your Harness Lightning and then you Dark Dweller it back, you obviously can start killing 4s and stuff. Like there's something to that.
Yeah, I think I can be interested in black-red per your question. You have my curiosity piqued.
I do think that it's going to be well worth exploring what all you can do to really cheat the cost with things like this. Like for instance, when you're playing Yahenni's Expertise, you actually get to just play, like if you're playing Modern, for instance, you can just play Living Death for free. Or Natural Balance, right? Like balancing...
restore balance.
Restore Balance, right.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I was just thinking about this. So any of the zero casting cost suspend cards, you can just plop out there.
Yeah, but half of them are banned anyway. But I think people could potentially be in Legacy. People are into this kind of stuff, you know? I mean, the bar is pretty high in Legacy, so it might... But, like, it's sweet to just go Yahenni's Expertise and follow it up with, I don't know, a Shardless Agent or something. But in terms of Modern, doesn't it seem just kind of, like, pretty filthy? The prospect of playing, like you literally... Like, this is just a 4-cost sweeper that also lets you play Living Death or Restore Balance for free. And obviously Living Death is weird because you just swept the board. But, like, if you're getting enough graveyard recursion, then maybe it's worth it. But it's more likely... I mean, the fact that Restore Balance, this thing gives you a way to just make it so you can just cast it. I mean, maybe you just have... Like, maybe the 8 all the Cascade cards are just enough. But it's at least interesting.
I mean,
it's at least interesting.
It's certainly a place that we haven't been, right? And like you said, this card is like a chunk of a Languish and a chunk of a Bloodbraid Elf, and you know those are both outstanding Magic cards. You know, one of which is banned in Modern right now. So I think that there might be something there, especially since the front half of the Yahenni's Expertise is actually pretty good in some matchups. Yeah. Like if people are playing elves or something like that, or some kind of tokens or white weenie, or merfolk, or have a Master of Waves in play. Yahenni's Expertise's front side is actually a very interesting card to have. That it's highly applicable to the things that people might be doing. So that's cool. What do you think about? This is a little dumb, but I think it actually has some applications. What if you just Yahenni's Expertise into playing Tendrils? So you're like -3, -3, -2, -2. Just to get 5. Do you think that's the thing people will ever do?
People will do it, but I don't think it's that good without Dark Patrician. Dark Petition as an incentive to be splitting up your sweepers that way. I wouldn't want that to be Plan A, but I think that it's possible that people will want to have a spread. There have been times in the past where you've wanted to play with both Languish and -2/-2, just because it is better to draw one of each rather than draw 2 Languishes or whatever. And so I think that will happen. That could happen again. And I think that there could be times where you play something else on turn 3 because you have the Expertise and the Tendrils and your opponent has big stuff. So I think that's something that people will do, but I would not want that to be the primary plan.
Are there any modal kind of super flexible cards like on the order of an Abzan Charm in Standard right now, where you could get maybe double duty out of a card? Like, you cast Yahenni's Expertise, and if you need a card drawer, you have it. If you need, a threat, you have it.
Well, in Modern, you've got access to Call Against Command, and there's lots of stuff, obviously, but the Call Against Command is a real nice way to get extra 3s in your deck.
Well, especially one that you want to play, right? That card's such a breaker in so many matchups in Modern.
Yeah, like the ability to effectively... It's sort of like the Whispers of the Muse type of thing, where you effectively have more expensive... Like, it lets you sink your extra mana, because if you want to, you can be using it for, drawing back... getting back a Snapcaster Mage or something. So you can keep spending your mana productively.
Oh, I don't know, Patrick. I might be in love with Grixis colors again in Modern, and willing to pay a little bit more mana when you start talking like that. Although, if we start talking about 4s in those colors, Yahenni's Expertise is head-to-head with Cryptic Command, right? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but you played Slagstorm. You've played Languish. I mean, there's times and there's ways.
That's true.
I don't know. It's cheating on mana is kind of sweet.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, right? Like
now, are you ready for the? Oh, here's one for you. Boom Bust.
in? Right, so I can go like Yahenni's Expertise and then do cast the 2 casting cost I guess place the 2 casting cost version. No, can you do that?
Isn't it worded the exact same as Goblin Dark Dweller?
I don't know. I'm going to look at this closely. I feel like you would have to pay the 2 casting cost version.
Why? That's not the case with Goblin Dark Dweller. And they're worded the exact same. Like Goblin Dark Dweller just says, when Goblin Dark Dwellers enters the battlefield, you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. The only difference here is that Goblin Dark Dweller calls out instant or sorcery card, whereas the other thing just calls out card. The Expertise just calls out, you may cast a card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. It's the same thing, man.
Okay.
Dude, you can just boom bust people, and you just swept the board.
So this is basically like
Armageddon.
It's like a apocalypse, right? Because Armageddon just kills the lands. This kills all the creatures and the lands.
Well, yeah, it's only -3/-3 though. So if you just have a creature in play with 4 toughness, you just killed all the lands, gave everything -3/-3, and you just have a creature in play. So if on turn 3 you play, I don't know what all the best options are. You could play on turn 3 a Woolly Thoctor or Doran. But if you just play Woolly Thoctor or Doran on turn 3, Doran is the nice one. I guess you're playing Boom Bust anyway, so you're kind of already locked into black and red. But as long as you just drop some kind of a sweet threat with 4 toughness on turn 3, and then on turn 4 you sweep the board, Armageddon, boom. Plus, it's not like you can't just play you can play discard to make sure that you live that long, and just to buy yourself some time and take the path or I don't know, whatever. Dude, this seems sick. This card seems like it's kind of just disgusting how effective it is at cheating costs in Modern.
I think that it's going to be... You think it's going to be cross-format staple? At least 2
I don't know,
formats?
man. It's too complicated. It's not clear to me that it's going to even be a staple in Standard. It's going to so much depend on what the rest of the cards are. It might be a staple. But it might also...
I think this level of...
It looks like it'll be
is too good for not to be played in Standard.
Oh, yeah, I think it'll be played. It's just how good, I think, is just going to end up being a question of what the decks are. There's a lot of cards that are good enough to be a staple that aren't seeing play as much in Standard right now just because contextually they don't have the right homes. I think in Modern, this card it's crazy. It's weird. It's a new thing. It's also possible that it's crazy in a way that isn't what Modern is about right now. But it sure looks like it's worth considering, man.
Yeah.
I played Goblin Dark Dweller and Boom Bust at the last Modern, and obviously, now that you have access to Ancestral Visions, Ancestral Visions is that's the sick one, right? If you play Ancestral Visions with Expertise, suddenly that card is so much more main deckable.
Well, yeah, it's basically 4 mana, -3/-3 to everything, draw 3 cards. That's too good. That's way too good.
Yeah, that seems sick. The fact that you can Expertise with Ancestral Visions so they don't just get clogged in your hand.
Yeah,
that's I'm in for that, dude. I cannot wait for the next Modern GP. Good. I'm in. Yeah. That's absurd. Dude, the thing is, though, that even though that's, absurd, it's still not as good as Boom Bust, man.
Boom Bust is great when you're... I think that when you Boom Bust, especially cheatsy Boom Bust, with a Goblin Dark Queller, it's different because you've got a 4/4 Menace in play. This, you're just, you're the control deck, and you're Armageddoning... Armageddoning with potentially nothing. If it's turn 5 and you do this, and then you Boom Bust them... kill all the lands and then play the first land, that's cool. But I don't know. Having a 4/4 Menace in play is so different from then just having an advantage.
I don't know, man.
Kill all the lands.
You could just have in play, Jace Beleren. You could just have Liliana the Last Hope or Liliana of the Veil.
What are you doing to me, man? You're just saying words that I like. Jace.
Like if you play Liliana on turn 3 and then Expertise on turn 4 in Armageddon, you swept the board, Armageddon, have a Liliana ticking up, and you can scepter them every turn so they have no cards. This sounds like a really excellent position.
Do you think you'd want to play this like in an 8-rack deck or something?
Definitely.
Deck? You could bridge with this too, right?
Definitely. I think you would play this in lots of decks. But I also think that the decks that you would play it in are actually constrained by the other decks that you could play it in. Because you got to just live in the world where people can just cast Armageddon and Restore Balance and Ancestral Visions. I don't know, man. This seems like a game changer.
Yeah. I think this one's going to be a good one. It's a keeper.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I mean, historically, what has ever gone wrong with the you can pay this without paying its casting cost mechanic? Like, being able to play spells without paying their casting cost? Good times. Nothing could go wrong.
I think that's actually when most of the time when the formats go wrong. That's the...
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right.
Some version of Storm / untapping all of my lands. This is the kissing cousin of both of those type of abilities.
So what do you think about... this is only one of the 3 Aether Revolt spoilers we've got so far. What do you think of, and this is a 3-drop you can put into play from the Expertise, Trophy Mage, man?
So Trophy Mage is blue and 2, so 3 total mana.
2 and a blue.
2 and a blue. What did I say?
Blue and 2. 2 and a blue.
2 and a blue for a 2/2 creature. Human Wizard. When Trophy Mage enters the battlefield, you may search your library for an artifact card with converted mana cost 3.
Exactly 3.
Exactly 3. Reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. So Trophy Mage harkens back to Treasure Mage and Trinket Mage.
Yep.
Treasure Mage got things that were 6 or more, I want to say, right?
It did.
That guy was...
And
okay.
Trinket Mage 1 or less.
Yeah, Trinket Mage was the man, though. So Trinket Mage got everything from Sensei's Divining Top to artifact lands, various types of moxes, depending on which format it was in. That guy was very... I don't know, spell bombs sometimes. He was
Black Lotus.
Oh, I don't know anything about that.
No. In Vintage, there have been times where people would set up Black Lotus with Bomber Man. You know, like Trinket Mage actually does stuff.
I have in fact gotten Black Lotus with Trinket Mage in Cube.
Okay, there you go.
It was awesome. But yeah,
Skull Clamp, that was always my favorite.
That one's you're a horrible person if you've ever done that to someone. They probably are very unhappy because
I don't know, man. Nowadays, if you play Skull Clamp, you're the hero because the only place you're playing it is in Vintage. And if you're playing Skull Clamp in Vintage, I promise you, the crowd is on your side.
You're not a stack.
At least the first time. The first time, the crowd is on your side.
So, Trophy Mage, he has less flexibility insofar that he gets only 3s rather than 0s or 1s or 6s or mores. So, Treasure Mage, that guy just pretty much just got Wormcoil engines, right? As I recall, that was all he ever did.
No, are you kidding me?
Maybe I am kidding you. I don't remember.
I top 8'd a Pro Tour with Treasure Mage in my deck.
You had Treasure Mage in that deck?
Oh yeah.
I don't remember. In your
Tezzeret
deck?
Yeah.
It was in your sideboard?
I thought I just had the one in the. Maybe it was in the sideboard. I thought it was in the main deck. No.
I actually have no recollection of you playing Treasure Mage.
That's because the other Git was Mindslaver.
1 Wormcoil, 1 Mindslaver. All right, so
that's an early precursor. You know the people getting yeah. So I had just 1 Wormcoil and 1 Mindslaver, and it's kind of like the whole. You know, some people in the top 8 had 1 Sword of Feast and Famine and 1 Sylvok Lifestaff.
Yeah.
I had 1 Wormcoil engine and 1 Mindslaver, so that my 1 Treasure Mage could get busy.
So Treasure Mage, he was good for you. Helped you top 8 Pro Tour Paris. Got really powerful things. Wormcoil engine is still taking so many names in Modern. But what do you think about this guy, Trophy Mage? are there 3 casting cost artifacts that you might want to get in various Magic the Gathering formats?
Oh, definitely. I mean, if we take a step back a second and not even just because, like, obviously we don't know what else is going to be in Aether Revolt. Surely they're going to put something sweet,
yeah,
right? But we don't know what else is in Aether Revolt. But what we do know is that even though the cheaper the cards, like in general, obviously lower casting cost cards are better. We like them better in a vacuum. When it comes to which cards Wizards actually pushes these days, they push 3s more than they push 1s, 0s, 6s, or higher. Right? Because, like, I mean, they push 6s and higher a lot too, but there's just, it's hard to play very many.
Yeah, so what you're saying is that Reflector Mage and Spell Queller are both 3s.
I mean, it's not even just those, though. What I mean is that 3 is a cost that you can reliably put. Like, okay, if you put 5 different 6-cost cards for your Treasure Mage package, you're paying an enormous cost because every Treasure Mage was also like a 6. So you just can't play very many targets. But on the flip side, if you load your deck up with 1s and 0s so that your Trinket Mage has a pretty good toolbox, you're just playing a bunch of 1s and 0s in Standard. Now, sometimes they'll be good enough, but you're often, when you are feeding Trinket Mage or Treasure Mage, you're paying deck building costs to some degree. Whereas if you're playing with a bunch of cards that cost 3, you could easily have 4 copies of a sick one that you always want to get in general, 4 different bullets that you want to get in certain circumstances, and this guy. And you could still just you have a normal mana curve. Sure.
I think that Trophy Mage also gives you kind of an interesting redundancy, potentially in Standard. I don't know what all is going to be available, but if you say at 2 you have Glintnest Crane and you have this guy at 3, right? Like, you actually have a decent number of just creatures in your deck that can help hold the ground that are getting you artifacts. So I think there's an implied kind of a very interesting control deck, right? I'm just going to make this up, but what if Crystal Shard had been available? Right? Crystal Shard is an artifact from Mirrodin that costs 3, right? And for you, or is it 3 or you can tap to bounce a creature.
Right. So basically, you tap it and pay blue.
Yeah. So, like, imagine the ability to. I don't think anyone's going to do this in Modern. This doesn't seem powerful enough, and it's kind of slow. But if Crystal Shard were available in Standard right now, don't you think people would certainly want to flock to something like Crystal Shard and Trophy Mage? That seems like a really powerful setup.
Oh, yeah. The fact that you can play the Trophy Mage, go get the Crystal Shard, bounce the Trophy Mage, and now you have the whole engine, and it's a 1-card combo. Like, that's such a nice late-game plan for, like, you could literally adding 1 Crystal Shard to your deck gives you so much long-term inevitability. There's actually already a number of sweet options, though. Right, like, might you potentially be interested in going and finding yourself a Dynavolt?
I was thinking Dynavolt early on, but the only...
They don't like the same things.
Yeah, they're like, I don't know if I want to have a guy in my deck. Like, the Dynavolt Tower deck right now, as it currently exists, only has 1 creature in the entire main deck, and it's Torrential Gearhulk. And then I played it a lot as I think you know, but, you know, when you play the sideboarded version that has, you know, the 3/3 flyers and the 0/4 walls, I typically take out all but one of my Dynavolt towers when I do that, because they're just not friends.
Yeah.
They all need the spells.
My point was that you only need to play 1 Dynavolt tower in your deck then.
Oh, I hadn't thought.
What about Cultivator's Caravan?
I think that was actually one of the first ones I thought about in Standard, because it's just a card that you can play, and it's like a pretty good card, right? But B, cards like Cultivator's Caravan actually need bodies to make them go vroom, vroom, vroom. Conveniently, it seems like you're playing bodies.
Yep. All right, what about Deadlock Trap as a one-of?
Oh, that's interesting.
That's kind of nice. Like, that's a good toolbox, right? Like, if you're gonna have a toolbox at all, which I don't know if you really want to, but if you're gonna have a toolbox, that's exactly the kind of card you want to have in your toolbox, right?
Yeah, when you think about cards like the Trap, like, you're like, oh, is there a time that I would want to have this kind of effect in my deck? That's a question, like, you ask yourself, because, like, it's a fairly novel ability for Standard. yeah, I think you can just really think, oh, this might be good, but you don't necessarily want to like devote too much theme or too much space to something like that. But if it's in the context of playing a whole bunch of trophy mages and you only have one, it consumes so little deck space, and if and when you need it, you might be able to get it, right? Like, that's actually the thing that's cool about playing toolboxes at all.
Yep. Yeah, the fact that you have the implied value of just having it at the right times, like when you have a situational card like that. Here's one for you.
Like, so you're putting it as a Gideon, right? Like, and then you're just going to lose to the Gideon. But no, this is just a great little answer.
Okay, what about, and I know this one's going to be right up your alley, Pilgrim's Eye. No, I'm serious.
I know funny. You are. I think it's wonderful. So
here's why. No, so it actually curves fantastic. You see, you go turn 3, Trophy Mage, and then you play your Pilgrim's Eye on turn 4, and you immediately are able. You just move straight into to tapping them down. You can sacrifice both Pilgrim's Eye and the Pilgrim's Eye gives you your 4th mana. So you actually are sure to have enough to be able to, on curve, lock them down. All you need to do is have 1 Pilgrim's Eye in your deck, and then if you don't draw enough land, it's like you were able to get the land of your choice for 0 mana.
Actually, Patrick, you could have 4 Trophy Mages and 4 Pilgrim's Eyes and 4 Elder Deep Fiends. And that's actually just, they're all friends. They're super friends.
They just work together.
I love that idea, actually.
Yeah,
that might be the new archetype.
That's the thing. Like, that seems very attractive.
I completely agree. That seems great to me.
All right, here's another one for you. The 3/2 guy, what's his name? The one that makes sure artifacts cost 1 less?
I don't know what his name is.
So, it's like...
I know who he is. They put him in the Colossus deck.
Yeah, but they often only play, like, 2. Well,
Foundry Inspector.
What if you only had to play 1? Or, alternatively, what if you were playing some crazy combo deck that has 4? Like, what if you had 4 Foundry Inspector and 4 of the Herald of Kozilek, and you're put 4 Trophy Mage, and you just want to get your colorless cards costing 0, and that's just your jam? I don't know. People are into some weird stuff. Okay, here's one for you. Filigree Familiar. Just as part of your toolbox, because sometimes you want a speed bump, a little card advantage, gain some life.
But it's the same as Pilgrim's Eye, kind of, right? If you could play like 12 of these cards for a potential Emerge deck. And actually, there's no reason that your Emerge deck has to be only getting Elder Deep Fiend, right? Like, what if you had a little black Emerge, a little blue Emerge? What if you had some green Emerge, right? And then you just had all these dorky guys that cost 3, but all of a sudden they're trample overrunning. That's not too bad, is it?
I don't know.
You have all these bodies that you're committing to.
I mean, it's possible you have some kind of like a straight-up affinity deck of sorts, right? Like, I mean, straight-up affinity is probably generous, but if you have like Chief of the Foundry and Foundry Inspector and Trophy Mage, maybe you can stack enough buffs you could play some weird sliver game, you know? What do you think about the possibility? It's probably just worse than the 5/5, but Cryptolith Fragment has always been one that interests me.
Yeah, I think Cryptolith Fragment's in a similar space as Deadlock Trap, which is like, I can imagine myself wanting to have this card sometimes, but it's tough for me to want to build a deck that really incorporates them. But if they're bullets or part of some sort of weird redundancy, then that kind of stuff kind of takes shape by itself. Or you can imagine the space being worthwhile. It's like 1 slot instead of 4 slots. Because I do think this card is pretty powerful sometimes.
Oh yeah. Okay. Can you think of anybody who would ever want to get Electrostatic Pummeler?
Yeah, like electrostatic pummeler. Crazies. Those guys.
So if you have what, like, the module stuff, like there's a module at 1, a module at 2, and a module at 3, and if you get them together, you can kind of try them up and you start just doing it. Well, Fabrication Module is the only one that you can go get with Trophy Mage, but it's kind of nice to not have to play a bazillion Fabrication Modules in your deck. Fabrication module, as you recall, is the one that's it costs 3, and whenever you get 1 or more energy, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and you can pay 4 and tap to get an energy. And part of the reason why that has some appeal to me is because one of the modules is your Crystal Shard. Now, you can't go search for it with Trophy Mage, but at least you can bounce your Trophy Mage over and over again, potentially, if you are kind of like going long. So, like, maybe your Trophy Mage deck has some amount of ability to lean into the module game at some points, and play sort of a weird sideways Thopter Foundry game.
Yeah, I think that maybe you could just play Decoction Module and Trophy Mage in the same deck. Like, there are people who just play Decoction Module now, right? They play it typically with Whirler Virtuoso and try to do some sort of abusive energy thing. But it might just be the case that having creatures that have powerful comes into play abilities might just justify a card like this, even a bunch of copies.
Right, like, I mean, if you have access to stuff like Glintnest Crane, and obviously the Pilgrim's Eye that we mentioned earlier.
Yep.
So it's not like this is coming out of complete nowhere. And who knows? Maybe you can actually power up your Saheeli Rai. And maybe Saheeli Rai comes into play abilities.
She does.
But the prospect of actually being able to play Decoction Module to bounce all your stuff, and then 1 Fabrication Module because you eventually just Decoction Module your Trophy Mage that early on you went and got good stuff. And it's not like the Animation Module doesn't have uses, like particularly if some of the other stuff that you want to be doing ends up involving +1/+1 counters anyway. I don't know. It's probably too fancy, but there's at least an appeal. But
I am sure that they're going to print something in Aether Revolt that you might want to get with Trophy Mage, right? Like,
well, actually, even before we get, I agree with you, and I see where you're going with this. But I do want to also note that in Modern, I think it's not actually completely out of the question to play Trophy Mage. It actually sounds like it might be good because, like, the fact that you can go get Sword of Feast and Famine, that's a very attractive target.
You can get a Bridge.
Like Bridge from Below, another very attractive target.
Oh, an Ensnaring Bridge.
I know. Or, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm misspeaking. You're right. Ensnaring Bridge. I'm thinking of the one that... But, like, very, very attractive target when you... As a one-of, like a bullet. And maybe you just want a bunch of them. But I can imagine people that just have one because sometimes they can just soft-lock people out. Right?
Yeah.
But don't you want to play Cawblade, man? Doesn't that sound like you're not actually missing out on the Stoneforge ability that much. I mean, you lose the mana and the ability to do it instant speed. And obviously you're paying 3 instead of 2.
Well,
compared to a Stoneforge Mystic.
You're losing the ability to play the Batterskull for free. That's...
Yeah, but I mean, I'd be in for Stoneforge Mystic. If I would agree not to play Batterskull if I could Stoneforge Mystic sometimes,
Yeah,
like that was super good.
Of course you would, right? Like, but I think the Stoneforge Mystic was just the best creature ever, and then it got to be at a different level once they printed Batterskull. But it was still really great. Yeah,
I think that there's some sweet stuff in Modern that, I mean, you can get Trinisphere. Like, Trinisphere is a hell of a tutor package, right?
I mean, you'll really ruin somebody's day if you have that card.
Yeah, and what about Crucible of Worlds?
I love that idea. Even if you just had Crucible of Worlds with fetch lands, or
right?
I guess with Ghost Quarter, right?
Why not? Why would you not have Ghost Quarter? Why not? I mean, you've got access to the one Crucible, and maybe you even have a couple Tectonic Edges or a couple creature lands. I don't know, but there's some sweet stuff you could play. You could play one Crystal Shard. Why not? Right? Like, once you're doing it, I actually think you do. I actually think you play one Crystal Shard. This deck sounds like an amazing amount of fun to start building, and it sounds like it could actually be competitive. Like, the fact that you can have like, I don't know, Inkmoth Nexus or whatever that you can get back with your one Crucible, but he also sometimes picks up the Sword of Feast and Famine, because Sword of Feast and Famine, and maybe, I don't know, I would guess it's more likely that if you have two swords, the second one is probably Sword of Fire and Ice. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, right?
What about other creatures we might have bounced that we would own ourselves, and B, are there any good effects in Modern that allow you to play multiple lands per turn? Like something like an exploration.
I mean, Azusa. There's Azusa. Are you doing like an artifact that lets you?
I'm just thinking, like, if I had some combination of exploration and a Crucible of Worlds with this creature and Ghost Quarter, I can't imagine losing. Right? You're just gonna annihilate everybody if you have the ability to play multiple lands. If you're not already dead, you're not going to get dead. That's my point.
So, like, obviously, it wasn't like the greatest thing in the world, but like a Seed of the Synod, like the first Seed of the Synod, added a lot of value to a Trinket Mage package, right?
Absolutely.
You can go get You can play one border post in your deck.
It's going to lock us into having some basics, though. I mean, we'll have some basics.
Maybe. I mean, maybe you don't. I'm just saying.
You need to have the basics online. That's the.
And maybe you don't want to do that. I don't know. I just think that it's
not bad.
It's worth considering. You know, like the thing I like about it is the fact that you can actually cheat the system, because normally you end up with you can only play so many threes, right? But like if you have a border post, it's actually not even like a 3 for curve considerations. It's actually just a tap land.
Well, yeah. So the other thing is you're cheating in that you're supposed to get things that cost you 3. Right, like that's kind of the aesthetic of Trophy Mage, and you're getting something that technically costs 3 but only costs you 1, and that's cool. And then there are sometimes also, you know, we were talking a few weeks ago about the viability of cards like Gideon Jura. You just cast the border post for 3, and then like on the next turn, it was like a Fell War Stone for you that was off by 1 turn, and then you get to accelerate. That might have some value.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Is there anything that costs 3 that has like a super dope ability for you to sink mana into it? I know that like if you play any of the affinity stuff, there's cool stuff like Etch Champion and Master of Ethereum. You know, like it doesn't mean you have to be playing full on affinity or whatever, but this deck sounds like it's got an above average, you know, incentive to play with artifacts, and you might end up just you might end up with enough artifacts that maybe Master of Ethereum or Etch Champion are nice parts of a toolbox, depending on particularly Master of Ethereum, if you have a bunch of token making or something, if you have something that can produce a bunch of tokens in some way. But the Etch Champion just sounds like if you have a Sword of Feast and Famine in your deck and you have an Etch Champion, there's kind of a plan developing there, right? Like you're 2/3 of the way there. Like that's something. And I don't know, it's probably just too bad to do any of this kind of stuff. But like, isn't there one in Mirrodin that naturalizes, like an elf that you can sack and pay a green to
Glissa?
like the fact that you're Glissa? No, like artifact creature. There was like a replica.
Oh, elf replica.
Silbok replica. Does it cost 2 to use or 1?
It costs 4 to cast.
No,
3 to cast.
I think it costs 3 to cast.
I think it's too bad.
What about Oblivion Stone?
That, on the other hand, is not too bad. That card is great.
That's an awesome part of the toolbox, right?
What if this card is actually played in Tron decks?
Oh, interesting.
Right, so Tron decks actually would want to get Oblivion Stones.
One Crucible. One Crucible. They'd be in for that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't normally, but they would be in.
In this one. And then you could just reconfigure what threats they have, right? And then maybe they would want to go Crystal Shard too. Like, you know, we think of Tron decks as typically having cards like, Karn or Ugin as their big threats, but, you know, is there some big kind of creature you might want to cast instead? And then
Emrakul over and over again, man.
Oh, or any other Eldrazi.
Ulamog?
Right? Yeah, because they already play Ulamog. So maybe Crystal Shard Ulamog is great. I mean, I don't know.
Maybe you slow people down. Like, if they're tapped out, I mean, sometimes you just bounce their thing. I don't know.
I mean, also,
Like,
you
it's at
could
least
just crystal shard their creature. That's the...
exactly, yeah. And sometimes remember, people haven't had crystal shard in a long time, so not everybody's familiar with the play pattern. But a common thing you could do is on your opponent's end step, you're always threatening to make it so that on your opponent's end step, you crystal shard, cost them a mana, then you untap and you crystal shard them again. But and this isn't the Tron deck you were just speaking to, but just if we're talking about crystal sharding in general, Snapcaster Mage loves a crystal shard.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's you're on your way.
I think
like,
he might love it the best.
Right, like that's a big game. Eternal Witness kind of likes it too. Like, both of them are, that's a pretty good way to do it. I don't know, man. Yeah, you wouldn't want to play like Scepter of the tap one. Scepter, is it Dominance? Scepter Scepter of Dominance. The white icy that costs 3.
Oh.
It's just an interesting target.
Thought of that one. That might be interesting.
It's kind of prohibitive, potentially, just double white, but...
Well, a lot of these cards get very interesting just because you only use one deck slot for them, right? Like, Tumble Magnet might be good.
Yeah, I think Deadlock Trap sounds more appealing.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, Tumble Magnet could be good. What do you think about the God? What's it? Now I'm blanking on the name.
What's it do?
Oh, Vidalcan Shackles, the control magic.
Oh my gosh, that would be great.
Doesn't that seem like exactly the thing you want? Like, once you're playing a Vidalcan Shackles deck,
I mean, maybe this will bring back archetypes like that. Like,
this sounds sweet.
That's powerful. I mean, Shackles was just like the best card for a long time.
Like, the fact that Ensnaring Bridge shuts down a whole swath of people, Vidalcan Shackles shuts down a whole swath of people, and then Trinisphere, a whole swath of people, Crucible of Worlds, a whole swath of people. You're starting to talk about a pretty good hoser toolbox, and you've got, as long as you have, a good artifact creature you can go get for 3. I mean, a Sword of Feast and Famine is a great proactive way to turn your Trophy Mage into a legit threat on its own. I think this sounds promising. Crystal Shard being a card advantage engine on its own if you got to go long. Deadlock Trap or Tumble Magnet if you just need to have an artifact. If you just need to have a removal spell, some sort of a piece of interaction. I don't know that you actually would want it, but potentially there is Sculpting Steel type of stuff if you want to have, just redundancy. If your toolbox has stuff that you might want to actually put a second copy in play, I would guess that's not good enough.
How much is Moonglove Extract? Is that 3?
Moonglove Extract is 3, but I would be shocked if that was good enough to play. I mean, maybe.
It's not very cost effective, but if you're talking about just like a Trophy Mage, if it said 2U, 2/2 shock when it comes into play, that's pretty. I mean, it's not bad, right? That's, I don't know, 2/3 of a Flame Tongue Cavu or something.
Aren't there people who play in Legacy and Vintage for that matter, Metal Worker with that artifact that you can just sink as much mana as you want into it to draw as many cards as you want. You can just untap it as many times as you want. Staff of
Domination.
I thought that Dominance and Domination, the two different ones. Yeah, the Staff of Domination. If you're playing a Metal Worker deck, Trophy Hunter goes and Trophy Hunter, I guess, Trophy Mage goes and gets either half of the combo, which is particularly nice because you don't always want to load yourself up with that kill card. So the fact that you could actually just have one copy and have access to it more often, that might be a real thing.
Yeah, maybe. But Aether Revolt actually gives us a potential just in standard option at 3. What do you think about Scrap Trawler?
So Scrap Trawler is 3 colorless for a 3/2 that when Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return to your hand target artifact card in your graveyard with lesser converted mana cost. Isn't this card like amazing?
Yeah. So I mean, just by itself, it's kind of a card advantage card, right? It's a recoup card as long as you've got something in your graveyard. But am I reading this right? If you have this in play, you could just play and bin other artifacts, and then they can just go get artifacts from your graveyard?
As long as they keep costing less. Like, the artifacts they get back have to cost less than the artifact that went away.
So if you sacrificed a clue, right? A clue has 0 casting cost. You're not getting anything back, right? But if you sacrificed a Terrarian, you could get back a card that costs 0, right? If there was a 0 casting cost artifact in your graveyard.
Right.
And you could get back... You can do that as many times as you wanted, so long as Scrap Trawler were in play.
So long as you had artifacts that... Yeah.
Like available to get artifacts, yeah.
Right. Yeah, all that's true. The big game, though, is the fact that this guy's a potential card advantage engine that is also an efficient beater, and if they kill him, you draw a card.
Yeah, he's like a 3-2 for 3 is just not that bad.
It's not that bad. And there's some really enticing interactions you can do, right? Like, you have natural ways to sacrifice your artifacts for great profit. Like, for instance, if you have a Metalwork Colossus, you can just sacrifice 2 artifacts, get back your Colossus, and then because you sacrifice 2 artifacts for 0 mana, you just get back 2 other artifacts. One of the artifacts, like, you could sacrifice a 4 and a 3 and then get a 3 and a 2, right? If you
depending on the order, could you just get the 3 back?
No, you're sacrificing the 2 artifacts at the same time. Actually, no, they're already... No, you're right, you can. I think you can.
I think you can. They're in the graveyard already.
Okay.
Because it's a separate ability, right? You're not sacrificing it to the Scrap Crawler. You're sacrificing it to the Metalwork Colossus. And then the Scrap Crawler goes on the stack only after the other one's in the graveyard, which means it's in the graveyard.
Yeah. So if you sacrifice your Puzzle Knots, you can get back 1s. Right? Like Terrarian. Like, that's a thing.
This makes for a really interesting kind of deck where you have like a gigantic lattice work of artifacts of different casting costs that all have the ability to go to the graveyard. And then they work nicely together so long as Scrap Trawler's in play. But what happens?
Metalwork Colossus works with all that kind of stuff, though.
Oh, yeah.
And the Metalwork Colossus people were already playing Panharmonicon. I wonder if... I mean, it's not the exact same thing. But once you have a Panharmonicon, your Trophy Mage is doing some work.
Oh, yeah, he's at least getting 2 Scrap Trawlers in this case.
Right, and then you have redundancy, right? Like, I don't know, that's something. I mean, Scrap Heap Scrounger is kind of interesting, too, in terms of being a recursive thing that if it dies, you're not that sad, and if you have ways to sacrifice your artifacts for profit anyway, the fact that your Scrap Heap Scrounger might get back a 1, and Smuggler's Copter obviously could just die in combat. Like, that's just like a total...
Smuggler's Copter is also just a great candidate for putting things in your graveyard to set you up for the next turn.
Well, some of the most appealing ones, though, are like Cataclysmic Gearhulk, Torrential Gearhulk, any of the Gearhulks. Like, the Gearhulks are really exciting for the prospect of being able to get you something expensive back out of your graveyard, right?
Sure.
Like for instance, if you you probably wouldn't want a Cataclysmic Gearhulk. This is probably a deck that has just 1 million artifacts. But I could imagine it being worth your while to want to sacrifice a Torrential Gearhulk. I mean, plus it might just be the case that if they don't deal with your Torrential Gearhulk, you're happy anyway.
That's kind of an understatement. That guy's pretty big, and he probably had an amazing ability when he came into play.
I mean, there aren't too many great ways to sacrifice your artifacts besides Metalwork Colossus. There's Pia Noir. I mean, that's something, right? Cool. Like, I don't know. It's very interesting that even if they try to use removal to get out of you doing your shenanigans, you can sometimes get the better of it. And if you, in particular, can get a 2-cost artifact into your graveyard early on. I mean, because one of the drawbacks of this guy is you can't just play him out there, right?
I mean, you can. He's just. I actually thought that this card would be viable and we played, but its most common home is just going to be like just randomly a guy and sometimes gets value.
Well, one of his great things though is this guy is well positioned for activating, like crewing, whether it's a Sky Sovereign Council flagship or the 5/5 mana, the Cultivator's Caravan. Right, that's a pretty good way to do it.
Sure.
Right, the fact that he exactly crews it, but also they're expensive artifacts that actually die sometimes. Like, I don't know, that sounds like there's something there. I'd be in for trying some of that stuff, you know?
Yeah, I think this is very much a card that could be great, right? But I think it's less. I think the other two cards we talked about, Yahenni's Expertise and Trophy Mage, they seem really well positioned to me in multiple formats potentially. Scrap Trawler is more like, I think we'll have to put some work in, but he might do something very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's like a. I don't know exactly yet, but I would not be surprised if there's some sort of a Bomberman thing you can do in a powered format with this guy. I don't know exactly what it is, but like the fact that you're like it's a 0-cost, unlimited regrowths. Yeah. That's screaming to be broken. Now I don't know how you're
powerful.
I don't know how you're going back up the chain. Like you have to have some way to go back up, right? Like because like imagine you had a Ravager, right? You could sacrifice your Mirror Enforcer and get whatever you want. And you can sacrifice whatever that is and get another thing that is whatever you want. And you can sacrifice whatever that is. And you have to keep casting them. But they might be things like Mirror Enforcers and Frogmites, which are secretly 0, right? So, like, there might be some sort of a weird combo deck, particularly if there's an efficient way to mill yourself so that you don't actually have to go to the trouble of having stuff die. But, like, I feel like this might be – it's possible. It's probably bad, but it's possible that there's some kind of an eggs deck of sorts going on here. Like, that there's some way that you're – you know, like, for instance, when if you have this guy in play and you do the new Transmute artifact, you know, the reshape or whatever it is, and you sacrifice an artifact to go get something sweet, the artifact you sack – might be, I don't know, whether it's a Frogmite, a Mirror Enforcer, or something else, I don't know. But you can get back a real card, and you just tutored up a real card. I don't know. I feel like there's something there. As far as Standard goes, do you think you might Restoration Gearsmith with this guy? Like, if you play as long as you can get an artifact into your graveyard, and, like, Smuggler's Copter obviously counts. Right, like either they kill the copter and you have an artifact in your graveyard, or it attacks and you discard an artifact cheap enough for the trawler to get back.
Well, I think that Smuggler's Copter is a good example because that actually just has natural synergy with the trawler. A, it can just dump things in for the trawler to get back that potentially you can control or cheaper. But B, when it dies, it's 2, right? And then if the trawler dies, it's a 3, and you just get back to the better card.
Right, and it's not like there's no playable ones. Right, like a Bomat Courier crews the copter, curves out, like you get to curve out, and then you also, when your Smuggler's Copter dies, you get the Courier back.
Yep.
Like, there's something. There's at least something there. I don't know. I think all 3 of these are going to show up to some degree. And it's not nothing, by the way, that the Expertise lets you play the Trawler for free. Like, the Trophy Mage more loudly says play with lots of 3s, which the Expertise plays into. But even though the Expertise is a sweeper and both of these creatures would die to it, the Expertise lets you play the guy after the sweeper, and sometimes it's like both of these creatures are prone to trade off.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't know, man. I think all 3 of these are exciting.
I think they're definitely all exciting. I think that Yahenni's expertise is gonna do some stuff in multiple formats. I think Treasure Mage is gonna make us happy also. Scrap Trawler would make me happy if it did something, but I'm not wedded to it yet.
Dude, what about Eldrazi Displacer? You ever gonna put that guy into play? Oh, what about Matter Reshaper, actually? Matter Reshaper off of expertise, because colorless mana is not always the easiest to come by.
Sure. I like that a lot. I like that card, actually kind of all three of these cards are just, they're built in such a way that when you look at them, with our fresh eyes, we just think over and over again about how to get even more card advantage.
Dude. This already, at least they led with some sweet stuff. You'd never want a Soul Separator, right? Like, that just costs too much to go get with your Trophy Mage?
Probably.
Like, I was just thinking, just in terms of what's the Crystal Shard you can go get. Like, it is the Crystal Shard you can go get in a really sideways way.
They might just give us a Crystal Shard, Patrick. Probably not. But I think they might.
What about Nissa as a fixer? Yeah?
Nissa as a fixer?
As a fixer.
I don't understand.
So Nissa's double green.
Yep.
It might not be trivial for your deck that has all this double black to always, play Nissa on 3. I don't know. I'm excited. I love the little edge stuff like that, Oh,
I love that too. But if
prized amalgam in a deck with no blue.
Been done many times.
I know, but now in Standard you have an extra way. It's cute.
It is cute.
I don't know, man. How about this? Fevered Visions and you're not playing blue or red.
In.
Like, as a sideboard plan, could you imagine?
I can imagine.
I don't know. It's weird, though, where you'd want the -3/-3 and also Fevered Visions. I'll admit, that's a little weird. How about Jori N Ruin Diver? Nah, that's wrong. It doesn't trigger. I don't know, man. All I know is that this seems sweet. Cheating cost is like... And part of the reason it's so sweet is because it actually does break sometimes.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
There's only 2 of us. We're pretty smart, but there's only 2 of us. There are thousands of Top Level Podcast listeners. Why don't you tweet us at Top Level Podcast or Facebook us or something? What do you want to put into play with Yahenni's expertise, or I guess cast with Yahenni's expertise?
Also, or just what do you want to go get with Trophy Mage or Scrap Trawler that we didn't mention?
Stuff. Go tell us.
What do you want? Yep.
We'll talk about it next week or something if there's something interesting.
Awesome, man.
Cool. All right.
Dude, it's finally here.
It is. All right. See you next week, Patrick.
Awesome. And thank you guys for joining us. See you.
Life didn't work so great. Tried to play dredge, use a jailer hate. Ghostly prison waiting for my untapped phase. Your core trapped in amber stasis days. Lost a lot of friends, got left behind. Had to find a way not to lose my mind. Trapped in a vault with